Okay, this video is continuation from the previous video talking about nonprofit organizations. So in the last video I talked about just cooperatives, but in this video I want to talk about other types. So capital letter A was cooperatives and we talked about 3 types. Now we're capital letter B and we're talking about other types of nonprofits. So there's a couple types that I want to talk about. So the first one is what we call professional association. So a professional association is when you have a group of people in a particular profession or an occupation that works together to improve their profession or their occupation. I know that sounds wordy, but let me give you some examples. So first off, you can talk about the American Medical Association. So the American Medical Association is for doctors. So what does the American Medical Association do? Well, if you're a member of the AMA, as a doctor, you get little special privileges. So they will publish new research. They will make you aware of new research of new things coming out in medicine. They will offer conferences where doctors can learn more about new techniques. Learn more about for example, paperwork or medical filings for insurance and those kinds of things. Basically, a professional association makes, in this case, the American Medical Association makes doctors hopefully be better doctors. Another example is the American Bar Association. They help lawyers be better lawyers. There also is an American Teachers Association. They make teachers be better teachers. You get the point? So a professional association is helping people like in a very specific occupation. Okay, then we have what we call business associations. A business association is when you bring a bunch of businesses together to promote their common interests. And what's their common interest? Money. They all want money. So a business association basically is kind of this idea of trying to help everybody in the local community. So you could talk about like the Better Business Bureau, right? They may go and be made up of several local businesses trying to promote, good businesses in the area. And they want to make sure that, businesses are being honest and that they're doing what they are saying they're doing, because otherwise it kind of makes everybody look bad. Another good example is the Chamber of Commerce. Every city has a Chamber of Commerce. Even teeny tiny little cities have a Chamber of Commerce. Indianapolis is no different. They have a Chamber of Commerce. And what they do is that they bring together all of these local businesses to try and promote the city. So the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce promotes the city of Indianapolis and tries to convince people to, move your business here or come live here. We have great places to work or to buy stuff from. And so they want to make it a great place to live and work because, hey, that makes everybody's business better. You're more likely to get more employees and more profit if the city looks good. So that's a business association. And the last one I want to tell you about is labor unions. So labor unions is this idea of bringing a bunch of workers together to try and represent its members in employment matters. What that means is that it's trying this whole idea of what we call collective bargaining. Because here's what happens, is that if you have an individual, one worker that goes to the boss and says, hey, I think I deserve a raise. Okay, well, why do you think you deserve a raise? And you could number off several things. All right, I think I deserve a raise because of this, this, and this. Well, the boss can look at you and say, yeah, no, I don't think you deserve a raise, or I don't have the money, or whatever. No, I'm not giving you the raise. Well, as an individual person, your only choice is to suck it up and go back to your cubicle or say, all right, well, I quit. I'm done. That's it. Well, with a labor union, you have a collective group that go into the boss's office. So maybe, for example, it's one person that represents 50 people, and all 50 of us need a raise because of this, this, and this. The boss can still say no, but because there's numbers of you, okay, there's more things that you have as an option of what you can do. So yeah, you could go and strike. Does that mean the boss can't fire you? No, that does not mean that. But you have options. And when there's a larger group, it makes it more difficult for the boss not to at least give you something, okay? So my example of a labor union is actually one that I'm very familiar with because my husband is a member. It is the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, NATCA. Now, labor unions are good, labor unions are bad, because labor unions do help the employees get things that they want or need, but also sometimes it does protect people that maybe shouldn't have that job. I can tell you, for example, that back in the 80s, the air traffic controllers had a union prior to NATCA where they were trying to negotiate a new salary with their boss. And at the top of the pay scale here, who do air traffic controllers actually work for? The federal government. So at the time in the 80s, they were actually working for Ronald Reagan as president, and they were asking for a raise. And it was very complicated, but the basics of it is they were asking for a raise and several other things. And in the end, Ronald Reagan said no. And so the union members got together and they said, okay, we're going to strike. So they all walked out. There was a whole bunch of people walked out. Now, not everybody striked. Some people chose not to, but a bunch of them did. And in the end, what the interesting thing was is that in the end, so all these people, think about this, nationally, hundreds of people walked out, and there was, very few people to control these planes. And so what did Ronald Reagan do? He fired all of them. Now that was a gutsy move to do, because this is not a job that you can just take any man off the street and set him down and say, here, do this. You can't. So there was a time period where it was very tight trying to get enough air traffic controllers to be able to run the towers and things. And I can tell you that it's fairly interesting because my husband, when he first started working the agency, he actually talked to a guy that was working at that point in time in the 80s, and he did not strike. This friend of my husband's, and he did not strike because he's like, I couldn't afford to. He's like, I had a young family and I had kids, and he's like, if you strike, do you get paid? No. So he's like, I can't afford to strike. So he didn't. And in the end, those that did strike were not happy with him. And he got his car keyed, and his kids got death threats. And this was in South Bend, Indiana. This was, local, small town, right? So labor unions can be good, labor unions can be bad. But they have made a lot of strides and a lot of progress in the labor movement in the United States. All right, those are the other three main types of nonprofits that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Again, let me know if you have any questions. That's it for now.